You're welcome to the Policy Council. My name is Okwemi Agbaje. This week we talk about law, policy, and development. My guest is a lawyer, indeed a senior advocate of Nigeria. He's a former Attorney General of Lagos State. He chairs the Lagos Law Reform Commission. And most importantly, he has a passion for policy and how it can interact with the law to produce development. Enjoy the program. You're welcome back to the Policy Council. My guest this week is a former Attorney General of Lagos State. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. He's the chairman of the Lagos State Law Reform Commission, and he's an old Igbobian, Mr. Shukbo Shashore, SAN. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Graham.
Now, let me start from the philosophical. You were Attorney General of Lagos.
Yeah.
If you had a second chance as Attorney General of Lagos, what insights have you taken from your first tenure? What do you think we should focus on in law enforcement and law and legal administration in Lagos State?
Oh, well, maybe not Lagos State. Maybe generally the office of an Attorney General and sitting in the Nigerian context. I think one of the things that quickly came to my attention was the limit of the powers that a state attorney general has within the ambit of change and reform. Because of our constitutional arrangement, law enforcement is hampered by the inequality between federal governments and the state governments. For instance, a very meritorious prosecution that is proceeding with aplomb, with dedication and seriousness, can easily be frustrated by the removal of the file by the Inspector General of Police to Abuja. And we experienced that a number of times. And,
wow.
and once that happens, once the Inspector General calls for the file, the prosecutions come to an end. So a totally extrajudicial, unconstitutional, administrative act can actually hamper the performance of state law enforcement machinery. And that, I found that quite disturbing.
And that ties into the issue of state police, doesn't it?
Well, it ties into the issue of the federal structure that is dictated by the Constitution. It's not as simple as state police, but that's a symptom of the same problem.
Yeah.
That a unitary federal institution can interfere with the constitutional exercise of powers of something as serious as the office of the Attorney General. I find it quite disturbing. So I think that's something that really needs to be looked at, the limit of those powers and how administrative work can undermine its effectiveness.
And the fundamental diagnosis is that we have a defective federal system.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Okay, let me move to your current role. Yes, you're back in private legal practice, partner Ajumogobia and Okike. First of all, how does that feel, going back from Attorney General to private legal practice?
Wonderful. Well, I mean, wonderful in the sense that I am a lawyer, and that's my original calling. And I perhaps practiced well over 75% of my professional life as a private legal practitioner. So obviously there's a sense of homecoming in going back to practice. And also it's second nature because it's something I've done for so long. But that's not to take anything away from public service. It's a serious affair. Public service is a duty almost of any right-thinking professional in this country that one should not shy away from, however inconvenient. And mind you, it can be very inconvenient. However inconvenient it is at the time.
Did you forgo some income?
For sure. I mean, the salary of a public servant and the income of a leading legal practitioner, there's a big difference. You know that.
Okay. And you found time to write a book since you left the office of Attorney General.
Oh yeah, my second book, but this was co-authored. We started it, I must confess, and the governor always points out that I was moonlighting. We started it while I was in office. I think the last year in office, and we finished it just after I left. So yeah. We found time to write.
You wrote that along with Yemi Kandi Johnson, also a senior advocate of Nigeria, focused on arbitration.
Yes.
What were you trying to communicate with us?
Well, I mean, dispute resolution is an industry, and one just kind of overlooks from a legal point of view the importance of dispute resolution in the enforcement of contracts and the well-being of the investment climate in any country. The entire dispute resolution, if you break it up, there's the public dispute resolution, that's through the law courts, and private dispute resolution, that's through arbitration and other means. We've had a lot of challenges in Nigeria in the public dispute resolution arm of the industry. The challenge of efficiency, the challenge of probity, accountability. We are succeeding in reforming many aspects of the litigation arena, but the businessman, the commercial man, the investor needs that alternative. And arbitration is a growing trend. It's deepening in Nigeria, but we felt that there was an absence in material, text and practice material to guide not only the practitioner but the outside investors to what the landscape is like. Yeah.
Of arbitrations. Let's take a short break. I have Mr. Shukwu Oshashole, SAN, former Attorney General of Lagos State, as my guest. We'll be right back. You're welcome back to the Policy Council. I still have Shukwu Oshashole. He was my senior in school by 1 year in secondary school. Let's talk about your role as chairman of the Lagos State Law Reform Commission. What's driving your thinking in that role? What are you trying to achieve?
Well, it's the first law reform commission that Lagos State has constituted. In the past, we've had law revision, which is a slightly more superficial exercise.
Ad hoc.
Yeah, absolutely. Ad hoc and slightly venereal in its approach. But law reform is a much more profound exercise. And I'm privileged to serve as its first chairman, appointed by the governor. It's, our thinking there is to research the performance of laws in Lagos State, and its importance in Nigeria, its importance in West Africa. So it's a very important exercise to research the performance of laws, to review them, and to reform that law. And some of the legislation and the areas that we're looking at in this current program, we try and publish our programs in yearly cycles. So this year we've taken on 4 programs to review the sentencing guidelines for criminal justice, to reform the law of torts, the law of contracts, and a very profound one is the Sale of Goods Act, which actually is an 1896 or 93 statute of general application that's still operating in Nigeria and hasn't been looked at since. So we hope, again, 3 of them are private sector, again, following the policy of the government of the day. It's need to show that Lagos is open for business and serious investment business. So we need to reform.
Do you have a role in enactment of new laws?
Well, yes, we do. The process that we go through is an internal consideration of what the program wants to achieve. We design a policy for it. We have a stakeholders consultation and meetings with experts in the area. And then we draft statute and hand it over to either the State Executive Council or the House of Assembly. We can do either under the statute.
Did you have a role in the controversial road traffic law, the new one?
No. That had been done just before we were constituted, the law reform law.
Okay, let me go on to the state of the legal profession. You're a senior advocate. You've been at the bar for how long?
25 years. Yeah.
Exactly. So, when you came into the legal profession, can you review and share your insights about the quality of advocacy, the professional ethics, standards at the bar, as it has evolved over your 25-year period in the bar?
Well, things have changed. And not all change is bad, and not all change can be good, but we've been through quite a bit. I think the legal profession gets a lot more knocks than it deserves sometimes. I, for one, I don't subscribe to the over simplification of the fact that, the judiciary is corrupt. I don't think that's a fair statement. Besides, when you challenge people to provide statistical support for it, it's non-existent. But we are challenged. There have been ethical lapses of a very fundamental nature. But I think the legal profession cannot suffer any fate different from the country. And if we agree that the ship of state itself is challenged by all sorts of new developments, then the legal profession cannot be incubated from that. And I think what we need to do is it needs serious national reform. The qualification exercise to practice law and the conduct of the practice of law, the effect of the practice of law on the justice system and the delivery of a service. We've got to change the orientation of the product of the system. The product is not just a judgment, it's a service. People who come to the courts are users, court users. They need to have the same service level assurances that anybody who uses a service gets. And well, that's your area, you know all that very well. But that's really what I think is reorientation. We need to look at it almost in a business-like way. That people want to approach the system, they want a service, they pay for it, whether we know it or not, accept it or not. People pay for it. And yet they feel let down constantly by the lack of prompt delivery. It takes averagely 4 years to get even the first level of judgment. The magistrate courts, when I was in government, I spent over 70% of my reform time on the magistrate courts, because that's the first tier of justice. They do the bulwark of all these small claims, disputes, and the criminal issues. That needs to be reformed as well.
Okay, we'll take another time out. I'll be back with Chukwu Oshashore, the SAN.
My name is Onyema Kinzago. I live in Lagos, where things are getting better every day. Our school has just been renovated and they give us free notebooks too. Going to school is easier and safer for students like me because I can cross the highway using the footbridge, and I use the BRT bus, which is fast, convenient and free for students like me. I enjoy looking at the beautiful streets on my way to school, and the many street signs tell me where exactly I am. When I get to Basic 12, the government will pay the fees for my GCE and NECO examinations. I am happy. My mom and dad says all these good things are happening because they pay their taxes. I hope to pay my taxes when I grow up and start working. Have you paid your tax?
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back to the Policy Council. I still have Chukwu Oshashore SAN, and we call this program the Policy Council. And I know that Chukwu has a passion for policy. Yeah. What role? Why do you have that passion for policy? What role do you think it plays in development?
Well, I mean, it's first of all, I think policy is the underpinning of how government works and how it serves the society. And it's tragic that in Nigeria we have, over the years, unlike when I was younger, we've really downplayed the importance of policy. And there's a lot of emphasis on statutes. There's a lot of emphasis on executive action. And I don't think enough time is devoted to the research, development, and understanding of policy. I shared a debate table, just this sort of a conversation table with an Indian public servant. We were talking about environmental justice. And throughout his presentation, he kept on referring to policies document number X, Y, and Z. And these, he told me at the break that there were profound documents that state the policy before they even get to legislation. And most of the time, the operatives of government are actually reading from a policy document. I also know that the ANC and the South African government, every 4 years, every election cycle, the year before an election, they debate policy. And that policy document is what everybody in government will use for the next term in office. There is a lot of emphasis on it. And I think policy is very important.
That's why we created this program. But why? Because I connect it. I don't know if I'm right. I want your view on this. I connect it to the general disdain for intellectualism and for theory and research. Indeed, we regard those words as negative words. Theory, theoretical.
Absolutely. I mean, you see, and I won't finger anybody in particular, you see some of the performance of our leading public servants, particularly the appointees. They come out and they roll out a change. They roll out a statement of intent. But we're never shown a policy document. We're never offered the text to go and consider. And then the policy changes. The decision of government is now this, it's now that, and within the space of like a month, you can see some agencies delivering 4 different messages. Now, if there was a policy document, a well thought out, researched, that wouldn't happen.
There's another issue which I know you have a lot of interest in, or perhaps developing interest in, business crime.
Yes.
We talk all the time about corruption in government. They steal all the money. But we tend to have a discomfort, especially those of us in the private sector, when the conversation shifts to business crime, corporate governance abuses, fraud in high executive places.
Yeah.
What's your view on that?
Well, I mean, like you say, I've developed an interest in that from my time in government. And when we were drafting the bill for the new criminal law of Lagos State, which was the first criminal legislation change in about 70 years at the time. And we looked closely at some of those white-collar and business crime issues. And we found that the society has been poorly serviced. Again, I think you're right. People have a reticence of actually opening up the issue. Private sector corruption is probably of a more lasting and sustaining effect on our economy than public sector corruption.
Yeah.
And the crimes that are visited on sometimes very harmless citizens in the business area. So I'm really interested in that. And it's something that we've developed.
Let me go back to arbitration, and you discussed that. What prescriptions do you have for the practice of arbitration in Nigeria? Perhaps some of them may be in your book already, but can you share some with us?
Well, I mean, unknown to many parts of Africa, well, now it's growing. It's a growing fact that people know that Nigeria probably hosts the largest concentration of skilled, trained, and experienced arbitrators on the continent. It's the second largest growing branch of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators internationally.
Wow.
An organization that has 95 branches, and Nigeria is the second fastest growing. So there's a huge amount of human resource available in Nigeria. But I think one thing we've got to be very careful about is this issue of integrity, independence, and performance. Like certain areas of our lives that have been challenged, if we can keep that clean in arbitration, Nigeria will be a hub, an international hub for arbitration services.
Okay, let's take a final time out, and I'll be back discussing the Kuramo conference with Mr. Chukwu Oshashore. Stay right on.
Hey, welcome my son.
We are giving free textbooks in our school today.
Hey, I thank God. I know with this Lagos State government free education, my son will end up being a lawyer or medical doctor. He can even become an educated automobile engineer. My son tell me, say, their school don't get beautiful building with better chair and desk, new library, computer for everywhere, laboratory today, my people. All these things our children they enjoy today. Now our tax money do more. They pay my tax.
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back. My final segment with Chukwu Oshashore, SAN, former Attorney General, Chairman, Law Reform Commission in Lagos, my friend, my senior, my colleague. I was going to start with Kuramo, but no, I'll start with the PIB. I know you serve in the Presidential Revenue Tax Force set up by the Minister of Petroleum. What's your view on the draft PIB law?
Well, I don't want to comment on it because it's before the National Assembly, and several aspects of it are touched on in people's reports. But I think the reform of legislation in the industry is absolutely necessary. We need it. So I share everybody's views about the necessity of reforming the government structures, the revenue models, as well as the performance of those key operating units. But, you know, there's always been a part of me that has felt that the all-embracing approach adopted by a single legislation strategy has its challenges. And therefore, you know, I've always felt that there are certain aspects of it that could have been spun off into smaller pieces of legislation, subject-specific, that can address many of the yawning gaps. And there's some of them that need urgent attention.
Okay, so Kulamo Conference, the second Kulamo Conference. Tell us about this. What's the idea behind Kulamo Conference?
Well, I mean, Kulamo Conference Lagos it's a destination conference that discusses many policy issues that focus on the development of Africa. We call it Home of African Ideas. And the thinking of it, when we developed it, His Excellency the Governor and myself, when in the last administration, was to provide a platform where Africa could join international dialogue on the issues that affect global affairs from an African perspective. And we felt there was a space there. We felt Lagos and Nigeria provided a natural destination for that. Much in the same way as you have Davos conferences and
Doha debates, all of
and
that.
Increasingly, it has become a much sought-after conference. The first conference in 2010 was a huge success. We had delegates, over 2,500 delegates from 17 different countries. We had a former president, former prime minister, and former chief treasury secretary of the United Kingdom as plenary speakers, amongst many other highly notable speakers. Courtney Griffith, the defense counsel to Charles Taylor, the Fatou Boum, my friend and classmate, who is now the chief prosecutor of ICC.
Of the ICC.
She was there. And so it was a very colorful event, and we hope we can top that this year.
Who are you expecting this year?
Well, this year, the theme of this year's conference is the global commonwealth, the approach of the wealth of the whole world, and how Africa can contribute to that wealth. The plenary speakers are Professor Paul Collier, who you might know, Oxford University.
Of course, Oxford economist.
And Dr. Dambisa Moyo, international best-selling author. Yeah. Both of them, coincidentally, are economists, and that flows from the theme of the conference, which is to see how Africa can be more productive and the approaches that we can take to that productivity to the global commonwealth. We hope that they'll explore the informal economy, the distribution of wealth, the performance of aid, which is one of Dr. Moyo's themes. But it's not to say that it's all about the plenary speakers alone. This year's chair, the chair of this year's conference, every conference has a chair. The last chair was Justice Yinka Ayola of the ICPC. This year's chair is Professor Wole Soyinka, who has a passion for Africa, passion for the state of Nigeria as well. The convener, as usual, is the governor. They will both deliver their own speeches on that day as well. And we have a host of very experienced experts to take up the other subjects. And
I will be a speaker.
You're one of them. So looking forward to having you, Fola Adiola, Nuhu Ribadu, and a lot of other people who are chairs and contributors to the other sessions.
Okay, Mr. Shushpo Shashore, thank you very much for coming on the Policy Council. I'm sure we'll have you here once again.
Yeah, look forward.
I'll be at the Kulamo Conference at the Hotels 9th and 10th November 2012. I hope you'll be there too. That has been the program for today. Shushpo Shashore SN illustrates the interaction, the positive impact, law and policy taken to a well-researched and in-depth level can have on societal development. The Kulamo Conference is an example of such an interaction in which debates around policy can subsequently be translated into legal, political, and policy instruments that can aid transformation of our society. The law can be used to develop the business environment, to provide an investment climate that attracts investors. The many other things that deep thinking about policy and the law can help transform our country. That has been the program. See you next time.